Hey guys, this is VaulSC. Quite a while ago, I had a little competition for people who like to make maps, that's terrain layouts, for Tabletop Simulator. So that went really, really well. It feels like a couple of years ago that happened, but I feel like maybe it's time to do that again. Probably the main reason why I want to have this opportunity for people to, have a little competition for map making is that it's about time that I put out another little league, ran a little competition for you guys to play for Tabletop Simulator, and normally I would make all of the maps myself, which is a really time-consuming process. I'd like to spend at least a couple of hours on each map, and at the moment I'm pretty busy with my my YouTube content for Table Game Fun Times, because I spend pretty much every day editing videos and doing stop motion photography and planning and writing and all of that sort of stuff. So it'll really help me out if other people want to sort of do some maps, and what better way to do that and have a little competition. So the way it will work is over the next 2 weeks, let's call it another 2 weeks, so not next Sunday, but the Sunday after that, I'll wrap it up. Over that time, go into Tabletop Simulator, mess around with some maps and some assets and your designs, and put together your map, and you'll save it, and I'll show you how to do that, and you can DM it to me and send it to me, and we can go from there. I'm on Discord, of course, you guys know how to find me, links in the video description. And what I'll then do is we will, I'll actually select the maps that I like, probably 5 or 6 of them, and from that pool of people, your map will get play tested. So that's a really amazing opportunity. Another reason for doing this competition is that it gives you the chance to find out what happens if my understanding of map making and my layout gets played on by lots and lots of people over lots and lots of games. You'll actually get to find out whether your evaluation and your assessment of what terrain density ought to be like is actually how that's actually received by the community, which is really, really cool. Okay, and then at the end of the tournament, I'll actually ask people to fill in a bit of a survey about what maps they liked, and we'll find out whose map wins. So that could be really, really cool. Had a little quick straw poll survey recently, and some of you guys said that you do want to do it, so I'm pretty sure we'll get at least 5 people, and that's all we really need to have a cool competition. But it's open to anyone, even if you haven't made any maps before. It's pretty easy to do, to figure out how to do. Just drop us a message if you need some help. But what I'll do now is I'll just run through some basic thoughts that I have about getting started and making your maps. Alright, so let's just jump into Tabletop Simulator for that. So you guys all know how to use this program. If you don't, there is a tutorial on my channel about how to play Infinity on Tabletop Simulator. If you haven't already watched that, you really do need to watch that, just so that you understand how the basics work. But essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be putting all of your assets out here on the table and making your map. Then you're going to be coming over here and you're going to be clicking Save Table. That's going to create a little bag, and you save it and rename it and then send to me. So just a reminder, let's just jump up to Objects, Saved Objects, and grab one of my maps. I think one will be in here. Let's just grab this one here. So your map bag's going to look like this. It has to be named with a capital SET underscore and then your map name for it to work. But if it's formatted in that way in the bag, then you can drop it, and TTS will load up all the assets, figure out all of the coordinates and everything, and drop your map in here. And what you can then do is mess around with it, obviously. You can feel free to place the terrain anywhere you like. Then after that, you will save the table by clicking this, and it will just bundle it up for you. What you then want to do is navigate to the directory in your hard drive where TTS is installed, and it will be under Saves. Let's just have a look. So Desktop, I've made a shortcut to mine, so Saved Objects. So in Tabletop Simulator, you've got Saves here, you've got Saved Objects here, and then if you scroll down to find out where your map is, it's going to be under Set. So Set, blah, blah, blah. So you pick the .json file and then send that to me, and we'll be able to load your map up and use it in the event. Alright, so I do reserve the right to modify your map a little bit if it needs to be modified for the sake of competition. I don't want to do that, and I'll try my best to minimize the amount of changes that I make to your map, but there may be some cases where the map's just good enough for competitive play, but not quite, and we do need to tweak a couple of things. So what are we going to be looking for with your map? So first of all, when it comes to terrain density and that kind of thing, obviously everybody has a different idea of how to do it, but you realistically want to have a terrain that's not too open but not too dense, and everybody knows that and everybody appreciates that. But don't try and be too experimental here. Other people are going to have a 2-hour sort of tabletop gaming experience on your map. So when you're putting it together, just be mindful of the fact that it needs to be, it needs to be reasonable. We're not trying to experiment here or make any points about, oh, let's see if the community will like it if we just have a massive open playing field, bowling ball planet kind of map with no total cover. We're not going to be doing that. In the same token, we're not going to make the map so dense and restricted that, Morans have a field day even more than usual, and it's just a train rifle heaven. You guys know what I'm talking about. I mean, this is a map I made recently. It's just one example, and there are some long lanes of fire, especially from this building here, but there are also ways of getting through and avoiding your opponent's shooting stuff, right? So the second thing that I want to talk to you guys about is make your map reasonably practical. And what I mean by that is don't have too much stuff where you and your opponent are going to have to argue about how to play it. Don't have too much stuff where there are invisible colliders and it's physically difficult to move your model around. You're having to lock and unlock things. Try and use assets that are neat and tidy, where it looks the same way that it actually plays. So if you've got your model here and it's moving around, it's going to actually touch the edges of colliders and things like that, rather than just being suspended in nowhere or just moving through things. So try and use terrain assets that make for a good, clean, practical gaming experience. Thirdly, aesthetics is important, and theme. What you want to go for is just think about what kind of environment your map is in. Is it a cyberpunk city? Is it outdoors? Is it snow? Is it in the middle of space? That kind of thing. And try and stick to that and use a lot of colors that seem to be coherent, because at the end of the day, lots of people are going to be spending a lot of time on your map and looking at it, and it's just going to be a much more enjoyable experience if you make the map look neat and tidy and interesting and colorful and thematic and terrain that tells a bit of a story, and it looks lived in, so that will make a difference. I mean, if you make the perfect map in terms of practicality and gameplay and everything, but it looks rubbish, people still aren't going to have a wonderful time playing on it. And at the end of the day, I mean, this is on a computer. These days, people are going back to playing games in real life, and we're getting back onto our actual tactile real life tables. And TTS is still really, really good, but you want it to have as much appeal as possible, and try and do things with your map that you can't do in real life, using assets and terrain pieces that you wouldn't really have on hand, and make something really beautiful and interesting with it. Okay. Next thing I want to say is that try and bring a little bit of originality and inventiveness to your map if you can, and think about what workshops you're going to use to pull the assets from. If you're new to this, I'll give you a few examples. So the MicroArt Studio Infinity Terrain, you want to go into the workshop and just type in MicroArt Studio and try and look for this workshop in particular, because it's full of really beautiful looking terrain and practical terrain if you go through and sort through this, and people are already using a lot of this stuff for their maps. You can't go wrong with it. Also, my own personal terrain set, you're more than welcome to use this if you want to. If you like this kind of style of buildings, great. If you don't, that's fine too. One thing I've been encouraging people to do a bit more is play around with the textures. So let's say you like the shape of these buildings, but you want to recolor them or retexture them. You right click on it, go to custom, and then under diffuse image, you basically will copy that line of text, that URL, and paste it into your browser, and it will let you download the image associated with this. What you can then do is go into Photoshop or whatever and play around with it and paint over it, and then re-upload it to Steam. So under the Steam Workshop, basically you'll just upload it to the Steam cloud. Just let me know if you don't know how to do that. And then you can come back to this object, go custom, and just paste the link to what you uploaded into this area. And that way you can retexture it. So you're taking some objects and buildings that are already there, but making them your own, and making your map a little bit more unique and interesting, since it will be, the first new map that features your image. And we're spending so much time looking at the sides of these buildings when we're playing. It'll be really cool, and I think it'll go a long way to helping you do well in the map competition to make the terrain pieces visually interesting, even if they are terrain pieces people have seen a lot of before. I'll quickly mention this modular neon terrain set. This is nice and easy, practical set. It's got a lot of specularity. what a word. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but the specular intensity is there. If you change this to plastic, for example, they tend to change the way that it reflects light and stuff. But this is just one example of where you can find workshops in Steam that can be useful. What you might like to do is just try and find workshops that we haven't encountered yet, and terrain assets that we haven't actually used. But don't forget, if you're doing that, try to check under the custom menu here where it is actually uploaded. If it's under the cloud, the Steam cloud, great, you're safe. But if it's somewhere weird, like some kind of weird file sharing site, be careful about that, because it may not load up on other people's computers in some countries, and that would not be a great look. One area that I'm really a fan of is the Star Wars RPG assets. Partly because the assets are very good, but it's a collection of just so many different terrain assets from so many different parts of the Steam Workshop, and it's massive. So if you spend some time exploring this, you will find a lot of stuff that's practical for Infinity, and honestly, they have only just when I checked it today, come out with a whole bunch of new assets here which look very modular and very appropriate for Infinity. And honestly, I'll be a bit jealous of the first person that makes a really good map with this stuff, because if I had time, I'd probably be working on a map using this stuff right now. So go through that, but of course the workshop is just full of all of these different vehicles and terrain assets and trees and interiors of spaceships and all sorts. But when you look at this, I mean, you can imagine resizing the stuff and rescaling it and putting little bridges and stairways and stuff and making this into some really cool Infinity terrain. But yeah, make sure it has a theme. Don't just choose one bit from every different workshop and just move it all together. Try and think about the cohesive sort of feel of looking at the map and feeling like you're actually in a decent Infinity environment, right? Cool, so really looking forward to seeing what you come up with again. Save your map. You've got the set underscore and then the name of your map. Once you're finished with it and happy with it, get in touch with me in Discord and just DM it to me or email it to me or however you want to get it to me. And I will look through them, tweak them if necessary, and I'll choose 5 or 6 of the best entries for our competition, for our event. And then I'll launch a new league for Tabletop Simulator on Discord, maybe in a few weeks' time. The plan is for it to be an open to everyone event. It's not going to be a campaign. There won't be any custom rules, so it's not going to be like we're tweaking the ITS rules, but only sectorials, so that you won't be able to play a vanilla faction, and that's going to be the one kink, the one custom feature of this league. And I think you will find, if you think about it, this game, if you're not allowed to play a vanilla sectorial, that goes a long way to reducing the gap between rich and poor in terms of the best factions, worst factions. If you have to play a sectorial, there are so many players in that pool that have a really good, strong chance against each other. Obviously, there are some sectorials which are better than others. I think that factions like Cosmoflot, maybe Hassassin Baram, guys like that, they're pretty strong sectorials, where US Ariadne, not great. Imperial Service, I just don't feel like these are in wonderful spots. They're okay, you can play them. I just don't think they're as good as the other couple I mentioned. But the main thing is that these sectorials just aren't on the same level as, vanilla Nomads vanilla combined army, in my view. But look, we'll talk more about that later when we get the rules together for the league. In the meantime, please help me out by making some maps, because honestly, I don't have a lot of time to make them myself. I might get 1 or 2 together, but I'm just putting so much effort into the show at the moment, making stop motion animation and cool stuff for your entertainment. So show me your maps, guys. Looking forward to seeing them.